YouTube, what is good? Today we are talking about common mistakes that are ruining your cityscape photography. What is good? Hope everyone is having a great day out there. So earlier this week on Monday and Tuesday, I was in New York. I was working a shoot for a client, but when I was there, I had about 3 hours to get out to explore the city to make some cityscape photography. And honestly, I was very happy with the photos that I left with, even though I had a very limited amount of time. So I wanted to make a video for you guys sharing my techniques, the things that I do, the things I think about to maximize my potential when I'm out shooting cityscapes to get the best and most dynamic images possible. Now, before we get into it, do me a solid, guys. If you enjoy this video, if it helps you out, hit that thumbs up button for me at any point during the video. I would greatly appreciate it. So let's get into it. The first thing you need to understand is how your lens works and optimizing the lens that you are using. So if you're out shooting a cityscape at an aperture of f1.4, f1.8, f2, this can lead to some problems with your images, some impurities. You can get light diffraction, chromatic abrasion, and also if you're using a long zoom lens, you can get a very shallow depth of field, so only part of your image is in focus. Now, how do we correct this? It's actually very simple. You want to use an aperture of f8, f10, f12, sometimes even f16. This depends on what lens you are using. Each lens kind of has its own sweet spot that gets you the sharpest, cleanest image possible. Typically, if you're using a long lens like a 400 millimeter, an aperture of f16, maybe even f18 is better, so you can get a nice long depth of field that's not too shallow. Typically with like a wide angle, maybe like a 14 or a 24, f8 will usually get the job done. Keeping your aperture a little bit higher, you cut down on those potential impurities in your photos that I talked about earlier. Also remember, when you raise your aperture like that to an f8, to an f16, if you are shooting in low light, you are probably going to need a tripod to get the photo that you want because you'll have to drop your shutter speed to a lower speed. Just keep that in mind. So the second thing you need to understand is the relationship the city has with its backdrop. Now, cities are cool. We all love cities. We like a good cityscape photo. But what makes or breaks a cityscape image is the backdrop, the foreground, the settings in which you are shooting. If you go out in the middle of the day, 12 noon, blue sky, not a single cloud in the sky, and you take a photo of a city, it's probably going to look pretty boring and pretty dull and drab. Like, cities aren't necessarily always pretty. But you go back to that same location, you got clouds in the sky, the sun is setting, it looks beautiful. It's like a completely different place. It's just important to remember that yes, the city is the subject in your cityscape photo, but it's everything around the city that makes the image interesting, dynamic, and compelling. And that leads to the third thing I want to talk about, which is understanding location scouting and location planning and how to combine them together like a nice peanut butter and jelly sandwich to get the best photo possible. So pay attention, this is very important and honestly my biggest piece of advice on how to be successful with cityscape photography. The first is scouting locations. Simply put, this is going to different places, figuring out, will this vantage point, will this place that I am at get me the photo that I want? Do I like this view of the city? Maybe if I go over here, I can find a different view that I like. Remember, I said going out at 12 noon on a clear sky is not the best time to make photos, so utilize that time to get familiar with different locations. Figure out, okay, from this place, I have this view, I can take this type of photo, and from this place, I can do this, take this type of photo, and just store all that information in your head to be used later. So the second thing you need to know is location planning. This is checking your phone, checking your computer for the weather, the sunrise, the sunset time, different things like that. Now here we go. This is the most important part. We're going to use my New York trip as an example. You take that location scouting, all this knowledge, all these different locations you have in your head, and then you take the information from your planning, the information you gathered about the weather, the sunrise, sunset time, and you match them together. So when I was in New York, we were getting on the plane, I checked the weather and saw it was very cloudy, there was a lot of rain bands moving through on the radar, and I knew, all right, tonight there's going to be a lot of clouds in the sky. So when we were on the plane, I was already thinking, what places can we go to in this 3 hours we have to shoot to make the coolest, most interesting photo possible? Understand what locations pair well with the conditions you are going to be shooting in. So let's say you're going to have an amazing sunrise. You need to be able to think, oh, okay, at this location, I know the sun is going to be behind me in the morning, which means the clouds are going to be really lit up. Or knowing, all right, from this particular location, the sun is going to be in front of me, but it's going to be rising right over a building, and I'm going to be able to get a cool sun flare. But when you combine knowledge of location and proper planning together, you essentially already have the photo made in your head. All you got to do is go there with your camera and execute. Cityscape photography is just not all about the city. It's about the planning that goes into it. It's about thinking what makes the best photo possible. It's about finding the right location to get that photo. It's a lot of different things all combined into one. Now, the fourth and final thing I want to talk about is a little bit cliche, but it always holds true, and that is bring your own flavor to cityscape photography. When you go to a place like New York, pretty much anywhere, there are places that everyone knows. They know, all right, this is an awesome place that I can get a photo of the city. I can get a banger, as they would call it. But when you go to those locations, bring your own style, your own flavor into it, whatever that may be. Maybe the lens you use, maybe the angle in which you shoot it, maybe the way you edit the photo. We see cityscapes every day on Instagram, on Twitter, but it's important to bring your own personality into the photo and think, what can I do at this particular place or with this particular view to make it all my own and make it interesting? And honestly, that makes it more fun because you are creating something all your own out of a place that everyone sees. So that is it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you happen to take these tips, you go out and make your own cityscape, feel free to post them on social media and tag me in it at Evan5PS. I always love to see people applying what I talk about in these videos. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will catch you guys next time.
Don't speak in my gear words. Sometimes I like the tango.
Sometimes I like the tango dancing with these words. But I can't accept my thoughts, so it's getting worse. I gotta let it out.